This edition of MacVoices is sponsored by Linode, high-performance cloud hosting for everyone. Visit linode.com/MacVoices and take $20 off your first server package. MacVoices is supported by LinkedIn Jobs. Find the right person for your business today with LinkedIn Jobs. Pay what you want and get $50 off your first job post at linkedin.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. This is the second part and final part of our MacVoices live conversation with Terri and Chris from Luma Touch about Luma Fusion, arguably the best way to edit video on your iPad and iOS devices. Chris will continue with his demo. The first part of the demo is very impressive. He will continue with the demo. We'll talk a little bit more about editing on the iPad versus on your Mac and the future of Luma Fusion. So with that, let's get back to our conversation with Terri and Chris.
Since I've got it, I'm going to share the screen one more time just because I reinstalled the regular build and not the developer build and do a copy and paste. I actually tried it once before I did it.
You trust it now.
I trust it now.
So this is the release.
This time for sure. If anyone is a bull,
I wish I hadn't said that.
Fan. Yeah. So hit paste, and there it is in the new project. So, worked nicely. So I had to redeem myself on that one.
Yeah.
Chris, forgive me if I seem a little fixated on the Frame.io thing.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
intrigued
absolutely.
by it. So I finished my project in Luma on the iPad, and now it's time to export it. And I want to export back to, let's say, back to ProRes, or I want to export it to a .mov file, which is, depending on what compression you use, can be pretty darn large. Am I able to accomplish that on the iPad, or am I better off to go somewhere else, or am I doing that in some way through Frame.io?
You don't have.
Well, I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
So you can export the movie, directly out from Luma Fusion, and you can do an H.265 QuickTime movie format at 100 megabits per second and get a really good quality output and do that directly up to Frame.io, and then have it ready for people to collaborate with or ready to distribute on social media or out to a distributor or wherever else. The second option would be if you needed to use original ProRes footage, for your final output, then you would output it using our FCP XML feature, and in that case, it would upload without the media, and you would relink the media on Final Cut with the original media that was there. So then it's a really small upload in that case, because all your media is coming from Frame.io, and you don't need to we don't make you waste your bandwidth by uploading it a second, the proxies in that case.
But just to be clear, you don't have to export to Frame.io just because you started in Frame.io.
Yeah.
You can export to Dropbox, YouTube, wherever still. I mean, it's not a closed system. So.
Right. In fact, if you have a project that has all the comments, you can still export to the Photos library or to Dropbox at the same time, or upload another version up to Frame.io to get more comments back. You have complete flexibility in that.
All right. I'm being a pain. I'm sorry.
You are not.
But okay, so my project is going to be really large, and it's going to exceed the capacity of my iPad.
Oh.
If I am exporting to, let's say, Dropbox, is it exporting incrementally? So I could have a file that is a lot larger on Dropbox than the available space on my iPad?
So currently, no, that is not possible. It does have to write it out to the iPad first. Now, I will mention something we are working on, because this I know will work. We don't allow editing from external drives because there's not enough bandwidth to it. But in a future update, we will allow you to export to an external drive, directly without having to go to internal storage. It still has to be local to the device, but at least then it would allow you to hook up a little, USB drive, USB-C drive, export to that if you don't have enough space on your iPad, and then it would upload from there to Dropbox or wherever else you need to. And so you can definitely get past that space limitation on your iPad.
Or if you were using the proxy workflow from Frame.io, you can just export the project file to FCPX, and you're not actually exporting any media then, or not only media that you created in Luma Fusion, like titles or or if you downloaded some story blocks or something like that that came from our system. But the rest, it would just relink to your originals in Frame.io.
I ask only because I've been in that situation, not with Luma Fusion, but with an external hard drive. Well, for that matter, with the internal storage on a MacBook Pro, and then the external hard drive. Both of them are not filled to capacity, but they don't have sufficient space to export the version of my project that I want to export. And it's like, oh, now I have to delete something or clean the drive off or go find another drive or whatever.
Yeah, it's an uncomfortable situation because you're probably also really stressed at that moment because you're finishing a big project. So.
Stress, Terri? What makes you think there's any stress involved?
Yeah.
This is I mean, it's very impressive, and it's impressive to see the way you've thought through some things, especially given that we are talking about using the iPad for high quality video editing, sophisticated video editing. And I would encourage anyone to go back and not only watch the videos that you have done and everything, but also the previous appearances on MacVoices, because it's been fun to watch it build and watch the new features roll out and the tool become more sophisticated as you go along.
Yeah, I think everyone on our team has this experience where they have their heads down working for a month on something and they're not really editing, and then they go on vacation or they go to a lake or a hike or something and they think, hey, I'm going to edit something on Luma Fusion, and they come back and say, this is really fun. I love this.
Yeah, I actually did that recently where, I had, I was putting together a memorial video for my brother-in-law, and it was music pieces from a variety of people who did them at home because of, COVID-19, and we needed it composed together with titles and everything else. And I had to go camping. Well, I wanted to go camping. And so we were up camping and I started editing right there. I downloaded the media before I left because I wasn't going to have a connection up there. And I just started editing. And then over the next 2 weeks, I continued editing wherever I was. Sometimes I was watching TV. Sometimes I was out on the porch. Sometimes, and those are things you just can't do. Well, you can do with a MacBook, but just not as easily and fun where I could pick it up 1 second, edit for a moment, drop it on the table, get back to it later. And it's just a totally different feel of editing on Luma Fusion.
Yeah, it's that kind of instant on sensation you get where it doesn't take any effort to get the editing system on. So it's just right there. Your ideas, I'll just do that. And then it's not a big deal if I stop for a few hours or something.
Well, we've talked to a number of photographers who use the iPad for editing their photos, and they're constantly saying that they feel it's a more intimate experience. It's a more personal experience because you are touching your photos as opposed to manipulating them with a mouse or whatever. And I kind of have the same feeling that that's what's happening here with Luma, that I have, I'm having that different relationship with the editing process. Mm-hmm. And I know that sounds a little bit California, guys, and that's not what but it really is true that it's just a whole different thing.
Yeah, and part of that is the touch, and part of it is, I think, some of the decisions that we've made with the timeline are much more flexible than some of the other systems out there. Even though they're good systems, they've come up with a paradigm and they've stuck to it really hard. Where in Luma Fusion we've said, magnetic timeline editing is cool, but track editing has its benefits as well. So and insert and overwrite have its benefits, and being able to unlink a clip would be really cool. So let's allow that. So there's a lot of allowing that we do in Luma Fusion. And I think you might think, that would make it complicated, but basically when the answer is always yes, can I do this? Yes, you can do that. It's actually less complicated. And there's less stress and frustration. So it's always just like, I tried to do it and I did it. That's cool. And it really gives you this sense of accomplishment when you ask a system to do something and it does it. It makes you feel smart and happy, So.
Yeah, and I'll mention on the touch, I've got a Magic, keyboard for, the new iPad Pro, and it is nice that, when I'm doing titles, I can't live without it. Having the keyboard is wonderful. But when I'm editing, I still don't use the trackpad on there because that feeling of being able to touch the clip does feel completely different. And when you're using the trackpad, it does feel more disconnected. It's nice to have, and I think some users like that, type of workflow. But I love to be able to touch the clip, move it where I want it. It does feel different, and I think that's a big difference in the app.
This is such a small thing, but just during the demo, Chris, you were popping up the paste, and okay, so I'm going to paste. What am I going to paste? Well, now I have all the options right there under the paste button, and so this is why I guess Luma has impressed me so much, as it feels like there are no compromises on what you are offering me as a video editor. They're implemented a little bit differently than say in Final Cut, but it's also a completely different platform. But it makes perfect sense that, all right, I want to paste something. I first select paste, and then I decide, almost like a drop-down menu, what I want to paste.
What I want to paste.
And that's the whole feel that Luma gives me. Of it just makes sense. I just have to think about it that much different.
Yeah.
But I don't have a huge learning curve.
No, it's not. It's not a big learning curve. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because there's no giant menus to be intimidated by. You're not saying, oh, I wonder where I find that function. The function is always right where it has to be, where you're working, because we don't have menus for the most part. So it does make it really kind of obvious when you're using it.
Yeah. Frank in the chat room, I think we've answered this, but I'm going to specifically let you answer it. Says, so I could create numerous scenes in Luma Fusion, export them to FCPX, and assemble them together.
Indeed.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's certainly a way you could do it. Or you could do just one whole big project, 2-hour project, and export that to FCPXML if you wanted. Or if you find you don't need FCPXML, you can just render the movie out from Luma Fusion. So yeah, you have all those choices for sure.
Very nice. Very nice. And I think, Terri, I believe you were the one that said that, while Chris was gone, that Luma Fusion is $30 in the App Store?
Yes, it's $30. And it's not a subscription. It's just a one-time purchase. We have one option for story blocks that you can subscribe to, but it's completely optional. It's in the app. And we also provide a certain amount of free media in there, free songs and free backgrounds and free sound effects and so on. And then the only other thing, there is a charge for Final Cut Pro, export to Final Cut Pro X. That, again, took us a year to put that together. So it was something we needed to charge for.
Yeah, so that's a $20 one-time charge for that.
It's, again, we've talked here also about the App Store model and how it works, and I really like the idea that you do so much. You give away, not give away, scratch that, but you add a lot to the program after its initial purchase. But then there's certain slightly more specialized features that do represent a significant amount of work, and you're doing those as in-app purchases and add-ons, as opposed to asking me to rebuy the whole application.
Right. And Frame.io was meant to be, we did spend probably more than a year on that, and it was meant to be a charged feature. And honestly, it just didn't feel at the time of COVID, it was like, is this the time that you charge people something? And we felt it wasn't. So we said that this is going to be just a free feature.
I haven't heard anyone else talk about that particular angle of it, that you're adding features, but because of the situation that we all find ourselves in, that has affected a business decision as to whether to charge or not to charge, or what to charge.
Yeah, we have a lot of customers, that are journalists or people that would be doing events or any of those types of things that are having to reinvent how they're working. And Frame.io does allow you to reinvent how you work with other people. And it enables those people to do more work than they would otherwise in a time when they're not getting enough work. So it really just doesn't feel, in our case, with our type of customer, it doesn't feel right to charge them for something right now.
Yeah.
Linode.com/MacVoices is where you want to go if you need a virtual hosted cloud server. What makes Linode so great? That's what Linode specializes in. They feature native SSD storage, a 40 gigabit network, and industry-leading processors, so your server is FAST fast. Because you pay for only what you use with hourly billing across all plans and add-on services. No extra charges for data transfer, no hidden fees or nasty surprises at the end of the month. Because Linode has a new cloud manager with an improved user interface, so deploying your server or servers is easier than ever. Because Linode has data centers all over the world, from Toronto to Mumbai, so if location matters, Linode has it covered. Because they have a large documentation library to help you get started and help you make the most of your server. Because Linode has 24/7 live customer support, so if you get stuck or have issues, help is just a phone call away. Because Linode has a ton of add-ons, so that you can customize your server with exactly what you want and what you need. Backups, blocks, node balancers, load balancers, and more. So what do you need to do to take advantage? Visit linode.com/MacVoices to get $20 credit towards your first server. Again, linode.com/MacVoices gets you $20 off your first server. Check it out now and be up and running in minutes. Thanks to Linode for their support of MacVoices. LinkedIn Jobs is supporting MacVoices. You know what makes your business go and grow? Good people. Good salespeople, good service people, good design people, good marketing people. Pick a function at your company, and it's the people behind it that make it great. And that's why LinkedIn Jobs is so important. LinkedIn Jobs not only helps you find the right people, but it helps you find them easily. That's important since you have one or two other things to do during the day. I'm on LinkedIn. You're on LinkedIn. Or you should be. If someone in business isn't on LinkedIn, I tend to ask why, and then I go to the next person who is. That's because I know that the candidates on LinkedIn are screened for hard and soft skills to make the hire not just fast, but right. There's a reason that LinkedIn Jobs is rated the #1 hiring platform for delivering quality hires. And that same reason is why someone is hired every 8 seconds with LinkedIn. Tap into that power as you make your next hire. Find the right person for your business today with LinkedIn Jobs. You can pay what you want and get the first $50 off. Just visit linkedin.com/MacVoices. Again, that's linkedin.com/MacVoices to get $50 off your first job post. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks to LinkedIn Jobs for their support of MacVoices.
Speaking of your type of customer, because you just indicated journalists and that kind of thing, where do you all, what kind of feedback or what kind of participation do you get from the education market?
Well, I think they really love Luma Fusion, and they would love it if we also had an Android version, to be frank, because some of their students have Android and some have Luma Fusion. But we do work with some charities, including Sam Messman's We Make Movies and Orphan Starfish folks, and provide them with equipment for their students, and we provide them with training. And the feedback from those kids has been really amazing. We have some videos from them on our website now, on our YouTube site now, of things they've created with their very first time using Luma Fusion, what they've created, and it's really fun to watch. And I think, again, in COVID, and for people who maybe they're not in a situation where they're going to go out and they graduate from high school and they're not going to go out and get a normal job right now. Knowing how to edit video, knowing how to put a project together gives them a way to make some money and to develop a career all on their own without the permission of an employer to pay you, So I think it's just kind of really an amazing program, and it's amazing to watch what kids are creating with Luma Fusion. And so we're totally support the education market. We also support the volume purchase program for teachers. So if they buy with that program, they get the app for 50% off for their students. And that's actually a really cool program, but they also have a whole management system you can get with that, so they can reassign Luma Fusion to different students year after year instead of repurchasing. So I think we do a lot. I mean, I know we do a lot for the education market.
I'm just curious because, again, right now, as we record this, the ground seems to be shifting under the education market as to what's going to happen in the next month to 2 months as kids go back to everything from elementary to college. And what's it going to look like? Is it going to be virtual? Is it going to be part-time?
Well, I mean, tomorrow morning I do a virtual training for 20 kids in the orphan starfish, and that'll be virtual. So I've got my whole thing going on Zoom, training them how to use Luma Fusion. So yeah, I think we have to be flexible and keep moving, keep going on with what we love to do and what we need to do to make a living. Everyone, not just Chris and I, but just the industry in general. We have to pivot and say, okay, we can't do it like we used to. How can we do it now? And I see a lot of people doing that. There's just a lot more podcasts, a lot more just free sort of information that you can get, professional teachings and learn, courses that you can get online about video editing and video production.
Yeah. It's a crazy world right now, but I love the fact that, and especially love the fact that you're supporting not only the kids, but also a great operation like that. And it's what's frustrating for me is to watch how quickly the kids pick it up, because I have to unlearn some things. They're starting with a clean slate, so they don't have to unlearn anything. They just say, "Oh, this okay, you do this, and you do this, and this is what you get." Okay, fine.
You know what? So we have some young people that work in our office, and I'm an editor from 1988, right? So I have my editing rules, like no jump cuts and do this and do that. And, how long should a dissolve be? And never more than a second, just keep it short. And these young people in their 20s come into our company and make things that I'm just like, you know what? You're not doing it the way I would do it, but it works better than the way I would do it. I mean, our video language has evolved, and even an old timer like me can see that there are new ways of editing and new ways of expressing ourselves that are just as good as the way we learned. So.
It's really interesting to hear you talk about that from the editing standpoint. So often we hear about, when we start talking about video, we hear them talking about from the storytelling standpoint and how storytelling has changed. I know I recently went back and watched a show from it had been about the mid-70s that, I have these wonderful memories of. And the pacing is so slow. Like, could we get to the action? And right. And you don't even realize what has happened to us. And so now then you drop it back to the editing part. Yeah, the rules have to change because the method of the pace and the style of storytelling has changed.
Yeah, and just our literacy with watching video. I mean, I don't know if you remember this. In the 80s, there were a lot of bad quality video, and as it got better, my eyes began to learn how to watch better and better video. And then if you go back and look at some video from earlier, you're like, oh my God, did we think that was great? Because that's horrible. And it's your eyes have a certain literacy. And the same goes for the editing styles. We learn how to watch, and that has to evolve. And it's painful for me, to be quite honest, because I have my set of rules. It's painful to see someone, like you said, picking it up faster, editing different, like not following the rules, and like, dang it, that still works. Yeah.
Chris, are you having any of those transition issues?
It's funny because I don't I'm not a professional editor, but it's interesting because it applies to programming as well. When you're coding, things have changed so dramatically from, when I started this in the 80s, we had simpler programming languages. We had a lot less powerful computers. This iPad that I'm using, is 1,000 times more powerful than the desktop, the most powerful desktop I had, back then. So it's amazing to me. And with a few lines of code, I can do so much more than I used to. And, and yet it's more dangerous too, because every time you add something new, then you realize, hey, there's more we could do. And customers will immediately come back and say, hey, you did this. How about this is next? So it's the fun part is it's never ending story for us. I think every time we add a new feature, it will drive customers to ask us for what the next feature is. And hey, if you could do this, how about this? And it'll give us plenty to work on. And we'll certainly do that because it's a lot of fun to do.
That is so true. When we were developing for PC, it would be months. You'd design a feature and it would go away to some developers, and it would be months before they came back with something. And when Chris and I started on Avid Studio on iPad, it was amazing. We would sit on the phone and he would say, try this, and upload a build for me. I'd get it 10 minutes later. I'm like, yeah, that worked, let's change this. And he'd do it. We just went back and forth like that. And almost instantly, we could design and build on the fly. And it was just amazing.
Yeah, that's changed very dramatically, because it used to be where you'd build this huge spec, and then go away and write it and come back and realize it wasn't anything what you wanted or needed, and it didn't work at all. And you'd spend the next 6 months trying to get it working right. Where now, we do what's called agile development, where we get a feature working and we get it out as quickly as possible to the testers, something that's complete, it's correct, but it may not be exactly what we want because we want to try it and see what would be correct. And so we're willing and ready to make changes constantly and keep iterating until we get exactly what we want. And, so it took us longer to get multi-select out to customers, but internally we've had hundreds of builds, of multi-select doing different things and changing it back and going a slightly different. And then finally finding exactly the right, combination that says, okay, that feels right, for this first release, we'll get out, but we'll still keep changing it because we'll get feedback from our users who will say, well, what if you did this? We'll go, oh yeah, that would work. That might be a good thing. And we'll iterate it further. And
we did get feedback from our beta testers that said, hey, I want to be able to append my effects or erase them when I paste, and we're like, okay. So I think it was maybe 3 days before that was in a build for them. Yeah. So
we're starting to run over time, but I have to say this, that I got an email recently from someone who had nothing to do with video editing, had only to do with the OS, but talking about how some folks that he knows keep say, why does Apple keep changing things? Why do they keep moving things around? Or why do they can't we just stay, where we are for a little while? And I think what you all just said is exactly why we don't want to, we can't, and we shouldn't. There's so many more new features and new ways to do things. And I guess, you're going to be in a perpetual learning cycle. And if you want to get off of that, well, then freeze your system and stay there and hope that, it'll work. But I just listening to you two, I kind of get my batteries recharged a little bit. It's like, yeah, I got to go try this, and I want to play with that. So yeah.
I don't think we're gonna have lack of brain activity issues in our lives for the next few years.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need to do all those Sudoku puzzles. It's just part of our DNA.
My life is a Sudoku puzzle.
Terry, that needs to be a Luma T-shirt right there.
Yeah, my life is a Sudoku puzzle. I love it. I love it.
Yep. Great. Well, guys, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. I admit I had a little bit of trepidation inviting anyone on to do something live, but you all made it easy. Thanks so much.
Oh, thank you. It was great fun.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
So where should we send folks to learn more and get training and obviously buy your products?
Well, our website is www.lumatouch.com. Or you can search for Luma Touch on YouTube, Facebook. And on YouTube, we have a lot of tutorials by Photo Joseph, who is a really great explainer of how to use the system. And so if you're looking to learn about it, I would start in YouTube, and looking to buy it, go to the App Store and look for Luma Fusion.
Perfect. And I'll make sure I have links in the show notes to all of those to make it even easier for folks to find. So
Okay.
we'll do it again next time when you bring some more exciting features out, or if you just want to talk editing anytime. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, it
We
always
look forward
is.
to it.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you. I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices, or was Mac Voices Live on Facebook. I hope you joined us live. If you didn't, you can catch this in the feeds, and we will see you next time. As always, thanks for watching.
Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.